Good morning, everyone, and welcome to NCI Master's Edge webinar. My name is Michael Galvin. I'm the Regional Manager of the International Office. Today, we have a spotlight session on a brand new program here at NCI, which is the MSc in Open Data Practice. So please note that this session is being recorded so we can share with those that have missed it. Please allow a couple of moments to share my slides with you and welcome the attendees for today. So just give you a quick welcome introduction. So our chat box is live and please feel free to add any questions there and we will look at the answers at the end. We'd love to hear from you and any questions or comments you have during the presentation. We're going to be hearing from Michael Bradford, who is the MSc in Open Data Practice Program Director. And we also have Brenda de Aceveda, our International Marketing Expert, assisting me today with the webinar. So I'll just firstly go through some slides with you, and then we can do Q&A at the end of the session. So why do students choose National College of Ireland? Well, we're a small, independent, not-for-profit, government-funded institution with two campuses very close to each other, located in the heart of Dublin city centre in the financial district, and very close to Silicon Docks, where you have a lot of big tech companies with their European headquarters there. We offer highly relevant courses, very industry focused with strong linkages to industry. We have very strong academic faculty with good experience in industry and good academic accreditation. All of our programs are internationally recognized. So if you choose to take your program at degree or master's level and progress on to PhD, either in NCI or further afield, it'll be relevant to you. We offer very small class sizes and have good academic supports in NCI. As one of the things we are very proud of and we focus heavily on, that we offer smaller class sizes, better learning environment, and we have excellent academic supports at all stages of your journey through NCI, through your master's program, all the way through from beginning to end. And our career service has won multiple awards, spearheaded by Caroline Kennedy and a big team of about 10 people. There's somebody looking after every step of your career and internship placement from the moment you come into NCI to the moment you leave and beyond, and the career service is offered to our alumni event. So we offer a lot of careers events on an annual basis, both in bringing companies in on campus and also bringing students out to some companies, also getting to experience mock interviews and exploring all of the graduate programs that exist in Ireland, in the companies where students have the opportunity to stay back and get experience in after their studies in NCI. So employability rate is very high, and that is part due to the academic excellence that we have and the excellent careers team that ensure linkages between our academic and industry. And we've built up that great reputation in Ireland now for strong graduates, and so a lot of companies come to NCI looking to recruit our graduates because they have not only good academic merit, but they've got experience through placements and they have a good reputation from the alumni that have come before them. So we have good reputation in employability in Ireland. So some of these companies where our graduates are working, you'll find on our careers page on our website, under the careers section, there is a graduate destination report where you can see all of the previous cohorts of your program, of some of the programs on NCI. Now, this webinar status that we're doing today is spotlighted on a new program, but if you're looking at some of the other programs and you want to see an example of where, say, the MSc Data Analytics class of last year or 2 years ago, where companies they are in and job titles they are in, you can go into those destination reports and see that now. So give yourself the Master's Edge. Our entry requirements for the program, you're going to be hearing more about shortly from the program director. We do require a 4-year bachelor degree usually in IT or computer science major areas such as like biosciences, social sciences will be considered. Usually looking at STEM sometimes, usually having to have like computer programming elements in there. Michael Bradford will give you more detail on this shortly. We do require an English test where you're coming from a non-English speaking country. The IELTS of 6.0 or Duolingo of 105 to 120. And there's other English tests available as well, like TOEFL or IELTS, or the PT is acceptable too. So if you're a current NCI or Irish EU student, you can scan the QR code to look at the course page or email admissions. And for an international student, the application procedure is slightly different. We work with a number of specialized educational agents throughout the world, and they will assist you in your admission and visa counseling to get you here to NCI. So you can email us at international@ncirl.ie or scan the code there for more information on that, or tell you more about it at the end as well. So if you're Irish or EU students, there is some scholarships available, and there is scholarships available for international students, and these are based on academic merit. So depending on your honours degree, the grade you got, you can obtain up to a maximum of €5,000 scholarship for this program. So you want to chat to our students, if you just log onto the website, you'll be brought to the UniBuddy platform where you can chat to existing students at NCI in case you want to see what a life is like in NCI from their perspective. Some of them are maybe from your country, some are from other countries. It's a useful platform to go in and chat to some students. So our website is www.ncirl.ie, or scan the code and you can see full details there as well. Now, I'd like to introduce you to Michael Bradford, Program Director and Assistant Professor at the NCI School of Computing, and he is going to give you an insight into the MSc in Open Data Practice. And I will just stop sharing now and let Michael share his slides to introduce you there. If you want to take over, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm sure some of you are accessing the meeting from further afield than Ireland. As Michael said, this is a new program kicking off in NCI in January. It's a master's level program. It's focusing on open data practice. There's key practical aspects that will come into play a part as well. And there's a particular focus on innovation in this area also. So I'll take you through some slides this morning. My main focus will be on the actual curriculum, having a look at the background of the program, and then by all means we can take some questions at the end. Okay, so some background about the genesis of the open data programs in NCI. NCI is actively involved in a number of EU-based projects, one of which was the SMARTY project. Quite an interesting project. It was looking at creating a data mart for sharing of data across organizations, across institutions, and it was actually building that on top of blockchain technology. And we were working closely with a number of European higher educational institutes on that program, one of which was the University Polytechnic in Bucharest. So we've established a very, very good collaborative relationship with UPB in Bucharest. Furthermore, we were also working on another project called TrainRDM. Again, this was EU sponsored and it was focusing on research data management. The idea of this TrainRDM project was to put together a training course on research data management, particularly looking at training trainers in this area. And again, our partners on this were UPB, Technical University Vienna, La Sapienza in Rome was also a partner. So really reputable institutions were partners as we were working through this TrainRDM program. In consultation with our partners, we sort of came up with the idea of creating a new master's program, sort of stemming from the research data management aspect, but covering a broader scope of topics. And this was really the genesis for the open data practice programs in NCI. So this is just a couple of the partner institutions that were working with us, and also some non-educational institutions, but some organizations that are tapped into business innovation and developing enterprise here in Ireland. So as you can see, UPB, University Polytechnic Bucharest, TUV, Technical University Vienna, ourselves, and La Sapienza were involved in TrainRDM. We still have collaboration with UPB and TUV as part of the open data practice programs in NCI. So both UPB and TUV were integral to the development of the program. We work closely with those institutions in designing the program. And also when we run the program, lecturers from both UPB and TUV will be delivering some of the modules on the program. Again, just some context around the entire area of open data, open science, open data practice. It's a burgeoning area at the moment, primarily probably driven from a lot of governments across the world, the public sector, this need to create an environment where data can be shared, can be made available to the public, and also as part of research initiatives, open data is becoming very, very important. So just for example, this is from a report created back in 2020 by the EU. The sort of market size of the open data industry, it's touching there 184 billion, with prospective increases up to 334 billion by next year. In terms of employment as well, you can see the numbers. So up over 1 million open data employees in the EU by 2019, and again extending further into 2025. And the EU had surveyed a lot of organizations and businesses, and again the feedback from business was that open data is going to become more prominent, and there's going to be greater use of open data across enterprise into the future. So we'll be concentrating on the MSc in open data practice in NCI. We also have on our catalogue a postgrad diploma in open data practice and also a certificate. These are embedded programs in the main MSc program. So the MSc program is 90 ECTS. These are credits associated with programs. As I say, we've developed this program in collaboration with UPB and TUV. Teaching and assessment will also be in collaboration with UPB and TUV when the program commences. And not only that, this is a truly international program that we're offering here. So both TUV and UPB will be referenced and listed on the diploma supplements that you acquire on successful completion of the program. And just to give some context around the reputation of these institutions, TUV have a number of recent Nobel laureates associated with TUV, in particular in physics and so on. So very, very well recognized institutions within Europe. Okay, so I suppose let's jump into to have a look at the ins and outs of the program then. So the overall program has a set of program learning outcomes and objectives associated with it. And we'll be focusing on various technical aspects around open data practice, but also some of the procedural operational aspects as well. And trying to bring in innovation and where we can, particular business contexts where this domain is going to be relevant. So some of the areas we'll be focusing on will be programming, the whole idea of open science, the ethical use of data and the ethical use of open data, data analytics, data governance, data modeling, statistics, and also tying that into research activities. So we'll see later, as part of the MSc program, there is a substantial research element in the program and a substantial piece of research that you as students will need to complete as part of the program as well. The learning outcomes for the program. So we've got 6 learning outcomes associated with the overall program. Each of the modules then will map into these learning outcomes and support these overall program objectives. So the first one there, critically appraise the use of open data in various research, business, technological contexts. formulate, design, assess and implement open data management plans based on open science and FAIR principles. I'll just touch on what these FAIR principles are at the moment. So the idea is that data should be available as part of a scientific endeavor, as part of research initiatives. A lot of publications obviously hit journals and conferences and so on, but it's been found recently that it can be very, very difficult to verify or reproduce results that are being published in scientific journals. And there's a move towards making data openly available associated with research and in accordance with these FAIR principles. So the data should be discoverable in some way, it should be findable, it should be accessible, it should be interoperable. So from a programmatic point of view, we should be able to integrate that data into our own experimentation or our own systems, and the data should also be reusable. So you may not need to necessarily keep the data as it was in its original format. It may go through modifications, but the idea is it should be reusable, and it should support, validate, verify the work of others as well. So that's going to be a key point, and it's actually going to be very prominent in one of the modules. The next program learning outcome here is select, employ advanced and emerging open knowledge practices and tools to facilitate knowledge generation. So across the catalogue of MSc programs in NCI, we obviously cover off all of the theoretical aspects of a subject, but the programs that we offer are very practical in nature as well. So there'll be a lot of hands-on experience using the tools, implementing various frameworks, methodologies as part of the program. The next program learning outcome here, synthesize and communicate the opportunity of open data practices to underpin strategic decisions to key stakeholders. So all of these areas that we're looking at supporting open data, they are going to be of interest to organizations and enterprise, even outside the public sector also. A lot of organizations are making a lot of their data openly available, but there's various forces that come into play here. We also need to be very cognizant of data governance, data protection and privacy, but yet to also in some way balance that out against open data requirements. So we'll be looking at how open data can be used within organizations and how it can drive the success of organizations and offer strategic pathways for organizations to follow. The next learning outcome here is critically assess and evaluate sustainability issues and the ethical risks and impacts associated with open data solutions. This is becoming very, very important in the current environment that we're operating in, especially with the rise of AI and the capabilities of AI and the volume of data that's currently being gathered and used by organizations. So the ethical aspects around the use of data, the use of AI is going to form a part of the program as well. And as I say, that's becoming very, very important, both within government sectors, but also within private industry. And the final learning outcome is sort of tying into the research aspects at master's level. So conduct a substantial and independent piece of research and analysis in the field. So that's the general sort of overview, the sort of raison d'etre associated with the program, the overall goals and objectives. And these goals and objectives are then going to be supported by the curriculum and the particular modules within that curriculum. In terms of a structure for the program, as I say, it's 90 credits split across 3 semesters. So the diagram here on display at the moment gives a breakdown of how the modules are sort of situated within each of those semesters. We've got 30 credits per semester. There's also the capability to choose some elective modules in the second semester. So in the first semester, we've got data modeling for 10 credits, programming and algorithms, 10 credits, ethics and fairness, 5 credits, and open science and FAIR principles that I referenced earlier for 5 credits. I'll leave the research practicum for the moment. The actual taught modules in semester 2 would be then statistics for 10, data analytics for 5, open data workflow and lifecycle for 5, and then there's an elective choice Okay, so you need to choose one of these 5 credit elective modules. And as you can see, it's database and file systems, which would be quite a technical module, looking at the underlying storage infrastructure associated with housing data and maintaining data. Open innovation would be looking at creating an innovative business idea within the field of open data and open science and taking that through to a minimum viable product. And then data assurance and security principles, we'll be looking at data in the context of cybersecurity, which is, again, very, very important at the moment. The research practicum module, this is the major piece of independent research that you would be engaged with. That extends over 2 semesters. It's a 30 credit module. In semester 2, 5 of those 30 credits are allocated, and those 5 credits are going to be utilized looking at academic research, academic writing, various research methodologies, but also developing a research question that you will then carry into semester 3. So the remaining 25 credits of the research practicum take place in semester 3, and it's at that stage that you actually conduct your piece of research, gather the results, evaluate it, and create a research project report. In addition, there's an additional module, data governance, that runs in semester 3. Okay, so that's the overall general structure of the program. What I can do now is probably just jump down into each of these modules at an individual level and just take you through some of the material and some of the syllabus content that would be covered. So I'm not going to read all of these aims and objectives out for the modules. I'll let you do that. So as you're reading the overall aims and objectives, I'll just take you through some of the content and some of the subject matter that would be covered in each of the modules. So for data modeling, we would be looking at various data modeling processes, various tool sets that are used for data modeling. We'd be looking at the idea of data entities, various different modeling structures, whether it's at a conceptual level, a logical level, at a semantic level. And we'd be looking at the underlying technologies that can support those interpretations. We would be looking at some ideas around what's called normalization of data. That's a particular process that's followed when we're designing databases to actually house data. We would be looking at various different data representation formats, whether it's XML, JSON, standard open formats for representing data. We would then touch on some aspects of storage systems and also tie that in with the overall open data context. So that's a mandatory 10 credit module. The next module, again, this would take place in the first semester, is programming and algorithms. Now, we're not expecting that you are a software developer coming onto the program. We're not expecting that you have sophisticated programming skills. It would be a bonus if you had some exposure to programming prior to coming onto the course, or at least some computing modules that you've completed as part of past studies. But we will be concentrating on programming specifically within the context of data. So we'll be looking at different programming languages. We'll be looking at algorithms, problem-solving techniques. So general algorithm design, but then how do we actually implement that in program code? We would be looking at the ideas of functions in programming, code constructs, sort of selection statements, iteration type statements. We would bring in some ideas around object-oriented programming because it's typically that you would be exposed to some of these ideas in the area. We'd also concentrate a lot on input and output and handling data and reading data from files and also visualizing data. And preparing data for analysis is going to be important as well. So if you haven't coded before, it might be a bit of a steep learning curve, but we're not expecting, as I say, that there's substantial programming experience coming onto the program, and we will be focusing on programming in that particular context of dealing with data. For example, at a practical level, we would be using a programming language such as Python. And there's very, very good supports for Python coding. A lot of the functionality can be wrapped up in libraries that you then need to actually access. Okay, so moving on, we have a module called Ethics and Fairness. The fairness here doesn't refer to those fair principles, it refers to algorithmic fairness. And this is a very important aspect when it comes to the implementation of AI type systems that are processing data. So we would look at ethics from an introductory point of view. We would look at human rights, ideas around social justice, and then we would bring in ethics and data and the sort of interplay between the two. We would also then look at the ethical use of data on the internet within information systems. We would touch on looking at ethics around research practice, and in particular the ethics around open data. Also, part of the Ethics and Fairness module would look at responsible design of systems that are actually handling data. And then we jump in to have a look at this idea around algorithmic fairness, the idea of explainable AI. A lot of AI systems are developed and they can operate as black boxes. And by that, I mean that it's very difficult to discern how or why they are making the judgments and decisions that they are making. So explainable AI attempts to, in some way, expose the inner workings of these AI systems, and that can be very important for accountability as well. So if an AI system is being used to support a decision-making process, we need to be very careful that we can actually stand over how those decisions are being made or how the AI is actually coming to various sort of decisions, whether it's making the decision itself or whether it's in support of human decision making. So explainable AI is going to be a focus here, and also the ideas around algorithmic fairness. AI systems consume data. They need data in order to learn. And the data that is consumed is very important in how the AI systems actually start to model things. So if the data is inherently biased in some way, that can then taint or in some way compromise the actual modeling that the AI is going to produce. So detection of bias in data sets, the whole issue of fairness in how algorithms and AI systems run will be part of this module. Moving on from that then, we've open science and fair principles. So these are definable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable principles. So this module has a look at open science practice, open science endeavors. Really, it's the way science should be done. It should be open, transparent, reproducible, verifiable. And these FAIR principles and the open science initiatives sort of really take these principles to heart. So we'd look at open science practices, FAIR principles, FAIR data use, open education resources, the use of open software and open hardware, collaborative frameworks that are used as open science initiatives, all the way through to open licensing. So whether that's under some sort of open source license or a Creative Commons license, all of that will be part of this module. We look at the dissemination of results from these endeavors. And also we touch on the whole aspect of peer review, evaluation metrics that are used in terms of research and publications. One criticism of the way current things happen is that a lot of academics chase publications and chase getting various indexes up in terms of their research. But it's been found that that constant race to publish can in some ways compromise the quality of the work that's been done. And a lot of the times, as I say, the actual supporting data and processes aren't made freely available. So it can be very, very difficult for other researchers to verify or validate the results that are being published. Okay, so moving on from that then, we would enter into semester 2. We've a module on data analytics. This is a 5-credit module. As part of this module, we'd look at various methodologies that are used with data analytics. We'd also look at handling data for analytical purposes. So the whole idea of extracting data, transforming it and loading it into systems for further analysis, the preparation and the cleansing of data would be covered here. And then we move into what is really an area of AI machine learning and developing predictive models that can be used with the data. So for example, we might create some supervised machine learning models such as k-nearest neighbor modules, various regression type models, decision tree models, naive Bayes type models. All of these models can be used to predict various different results, whether they be classification predictions or regression type predictions where you're predicting a number. We'll also look there at some of the emerging technologies in the data analytics and machine learning space. So we would start to touch on neural networks and the use of neural networks in the AI context. Statistics is also in semester 2. So this is another 10-credit module. You'll find that statistics is going to be at the basis of a lot of analytics and machine learning. I suppose this is something of a traditional statistics module, although there is a focus on statistics in that open data context as well. So we'd start off looking at probability, descriptive statistics, hypothesis testing, the ethical implications of handling data in that statistical sort of modeling scenario. We would have a look at multiple sample tests, chi-square tests, student t-tests, all of the sort of standard testing that might be done in statistics. We'd also have a look at creating regression models and also look at correlations between various attributes within data and so on. And again, the open data context will come into play a part there also. Following on from that, we have a module called Open Data Workflows and Lifecycle. So this can be very important as well, especially for those who are research active, putting together research data management plans, actually handling the data associated with research and open science initiatives is a key ingredient for any sort of research initiative, and it's something that's very, very important when research funding is being granted as well. So we would look here at experiment design, we would look at data management plans, various different workflow models and tools that will support those models. Analytics around the workflows would be here as well, and also managing any sort of artifacts that are created as part of research. We then move on to the elective modules. Okay, so for the elective modules, we've tried to give some scope to cater for particular interests of students as they're moving through the program. Some of the elective modules are more technical in nature. Some of them are going to be more sort of strategic, business, innovative, focused modules. The first one is database and file systems. This one is quite a technical module. It sort of builds on top of the data modeling. That was a first semester module, but it's more of a deep dive into looking at various different storage solutions and putting together the infrastructure to support the data that is going to be used. So for example, we would look at various different database technologies here, how transactions are managed in databases. We would also then look at how cloud computing can support the storage of data and the processing of data. We would look at what are called NoSQL databases. So it's estimated 80% of the data that's swirling around the planet is not structured data. And by that, I mean, it's not data that's easily formulated or registered in a spreadsheet type format. So a lot of the data being produced is either unstructured or semi-structured. A lot of it's text, images, video, and so on. So particular database technologies are required to effectively handle that type of data. So we'd have a look at those different technologies as well. We also bring in blockchain technologies, and we have a look at how blockchain has an impact on data storage, and how in the open data context blockchain can be used as a way to store data and also to propagate data. So it is quite a technical module, but moving on from that, we've got open innovation. So this would be less technical. It's focusing on really the entrepreneurial side of open data. It would be looking at innovation, the mindset associated with innovation, various different approaches to formulating ideas and bringing them through to fruition. Using techniques such as lean canvas, we would look at how to recognize customer segments associated with the enterprise that maybe is being considered. We'd have a look at how to properly define problems, have a look at early adopters, funding, business models. And the idea here is to take it through to the stage where an MVP, a minimum viable product, could be developed. The final elective module is data assurance and cyber, as well, security principles is the title, but the focus here is on cybersecurity and data protection, securing data. We still may want to make data available, but still it needs to be done in a secure way. So here we'd look at the general cyber security landscape, various concepts around cyber security, confidentiality, integrity, accessibility, availability of data. We'd have a look at information security management, and we'd have a look at the threat landscape and threat intelligence associated with cybersecurity. So what are some of the common threats? How can we mitigate those threats? How can we set up access control for data? And also bringing in areas around governance, risk management, compliance, and we also touch on cryptography. So how can we actually encrypt the data and secure data in an encrypted fashion? So again, that would be probably more technical in nature. Probably not as technical as the file systems module though. And then finally, we move into semester 3. So we've got a module focusing in particular on data governance. This is a mandatory module because of the importance of the topic. So again, here we'd be looking at managing open data, how open data slots into the overall data management requirements of an organization. We'd be looking at governance, data life cycles, how data moves through various different stages, from creation through to use, through to storage, through to reuse and analytics and so on. We'd look at various different policies, standards, frameworks, best practice around handling data in this governance context, operational models, compliance issues, data protection, privacy, standards, legislation, all of that will come to play a part here in data governance. And finally, as I mentioned previously, we have the research practicum, which straddles semester 2 and semester 3. So you've very good scope to really come up with an area of research interest for yourselves in the research practicum. We require a research project report as a deliverable from the research practicum module. And the idea is that we expect that report to be done almost in a conference style or a journal style format. And the reason for that is we would really love to get the research work completed by students, published at the end of the program into journals or into conferences. So that's a general sweep of the Open Data Practice MSc. Michael mentioned the entry requirements earlier. So the standard entry requirements would be essentially to have an honours bachelor's degree or equivalent completed. And we would also have an expectation that previous modules that have been studied, there'd be some mathematical modules in there, operations research, statistics, standard mathematics or calculus. So some element of previous mathematical experience, and also some previous computing modules. Not necessarily programming. Programming would be beneficial, but some exposure to previous computing modules as well. If you're coming from an engineering background, if you're coming from a computer science background, computing background, typically you would have all of those requirements in place anyway. But also from the biosciences or the social sciences, you will conceivably have dealt with large data sets before. You've have looked at statistics, probably done some computing modules, or if you're coming from a library sciences or information sciences, informatics background, you would typically have those sort of requirements under your belt already as well. Okay, so maybe I'll stop there, and if there's any questions, by all means, I will gladly take them and answer them.
Hi, Michael. Thanks a million for that. It was very, I know I was taking down loads of notes myself because, yeah, it's good to get an insight into the program. Just regarding just as you were touching on there, some of the background, somebody was just asked on the chat, if somebody is considered beginner for like Python, would they be suitable for the course? I know it probably depends on their degree, but if they were only beginning into Python, would that help?
Yes, I think so. Obviously, if you've got previous programming experience, there's going to be a less steep learning curve for the programming module. But we will go through the sort of rudimentary foundational aspects of programming as part of that module. It will have to move fairly quickly because we need to cover off quite a lot of subject matter further than just the fundamentals of programming. But if you have some exposure to programming, if you're doing some work yourself with Python, I think it should be appropriate then. You should be able to come onto that program module and sort of develop your skills. We won't be developing major software systems necessarily as part of that module. We'll be dealing with data sets and processing those data sets using, typically Python would be the language that we would consider. So if there's some familiarity with Python, that would be very beneficial coming into the program.
Okay, and somebody was asking regarding the mixture of exams and assessments. Would there be, I know in some programs it's like continuous assessment and then end of semester exams. In the first two semesters, what would be the kind of mix on this program?
Yeah, so typically we would limit the number of assessments per module to a total of 2. So that's maximum. So some modules may only have 1 assessment. It really depends on the module itself. Some of the modules will be more practical in nature, and the assessment structure reflects that. So a lot of the times for the practical modules, there might be a project or an in-class assessment associated with it, not necessarily a traditional exam. For some of the other modules, typically you might find a 50-50 split between some sort of project-based work and maybe a terminal assessment as well. Somewhat like a traditional exam, although sometimes it might be a project, but also a report that has to be submitted at the end of term. Let me see if I can just find the actual breakdown so I can give you some more definite information on that. Okay, so just bear with me a second. There's a big table in our program document that has all this information. Okay. So for example, data modeling is 100% CA. So that would be practical project-based work, as is the programming module, as is the data analytics module, as is the open data workflows module. So just scanning through the modules here, it's very much skewed towards practical-based assessments and project work. Now, typically, along with the practical project work that would be completed, there would be a report, and that report would have to bring in some research elements as well. But looking at the assessment breakdown here across all of the modules, it is sort of very skewed towards practical assessment.
So it would be, would you see the class being quite interactive? I believe the initial numbers for the first intake, which is happening in January, as applications are now open for that program would be quite small. I think the numbers are somewhere around between 20 and 30. That be right?
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. So typically the lectures, the tutorials would be quite interactive. Even during lectures, there might be, say, for example, within the programming lectures, there would be hands-on sort of illustrations and examples of coding. And at master's level, we really appreciate when students engage actively within class and question things and really sort of in some ways almost hold the lecturer's feet to the flames and make sure that there's good sort of critique of what's being presented and that's a very enjoyable sort of environment for lectures as well.
Thanks very much. I know you talked at the start about the size, the scope of open data practice within the EU and in Ireland being a big tech uh, knowledge economy in Ireland. Would you be able to just give examples of potential kind of job titles or sort of specific jobs that students might expect to obtain after completing this program?
Yeah, I suppose the initial split would be between maybe public sector and private sector. So within the public sector across the globe, governments have open data initiatives. The Central Statistics Office within a government would be very much behind these types of initiatives. Organizations such as NASA, CERN, very, very big, substantial organizations have a lot of open data initiatives. So there's always scope within the public sector area. Within libraries then, within academia, there's going to be scope there also. Libraries, even here in NCI, we're very much behind open data initiatives and pushing out data and as much as possible open access research. And then within private industry, even the big tech companies are very much behind open data initiatives. So the Amazons, the Microsofts of the world, the IBM, you'll find that they have a lot of open data initiatives, even moving from the technology side and into the related area of open source software. A lot of these big companies would be producing software and then releasing it as open source. So from the sort of engineering perspective, there's going to be openings. From the analysis perspective, there would be openings as well. So typical job roles, librarians, library science, informatics, data analysts, data scientists, research assistants, researchers in general. If you're considering going forward for a PhD, having a master's in open data practice would be of great benefit as well. So if your end goal is to move more into a research role within academia or within an R&D center in industry, the program would be a very good foundation and support for going into those types of roles. So there is an overlap here with sort of data analytics, and that sort of whole area is still burgeoning with data science roles and data management, compliance officers within organizations as well. The whole idea around data governance is also opportunities that could be pursued.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Just check if we have any more questions. I think some people are just asking about the availability of seats. I can say there is seats available for January intake. For any students who are looking at commencing on this journey into the MSc in open data practice, really just it's great to come on and get insights into the program. You need to see firstly if you meet the minimum entry requirements, and then get in touch with us at the international office, or if you're already in touch with a local educational agency in your country, and then apply for the program. We do require like full documents, your degree award certificate, your transcripts, your CV. Sometime will you look for a personal statement from people for this program, or is it just purely on academic credentials, Michael?
Initially would be on academic credentials. So if the basic entry requirements are being met, there should be no difficulty. If there's any sort of question mark, or if we need additional information, the admissions office would then seek that information.
Oh, perfect. And then once you apply, our admissions are quite fast. Usually after assessments, you'll receive an offer letter and then able to confirm your place with payment. We do have some scholarships available, as I mentioned earlier, based on your academic merit, on your GPA or your honours degree, whether it's second class up or second class lower honours degree, up to a maximum of €5,000 available on tuition fees. And then also it's important, if you're coming in after paying your fees before you book, to look at accommodation in Ireland, especially in January intake. And if you're a visa relevant country, ensure you apply for that in plenty of time. We do not allow students to start late in NCI, so you need to be ensured that you're applying for your visa early and have everything booked and in place before you come over. So I know time is ticking. It's September, but if you're applying, very interested in this program, you need to be applying now. And looking at paying your fees and applying for your visa as soon as you possibly can if you're from a visa expecting country. But otherwise, confirm your place with your fees. If you're from a non-visa requiring country, if there's any Irish or EU students on here, please do get in touch with admissions@ncirl.ie and we can facilitate your admission that way. I don't think there's any further questions coming through at the moment.
There's just two I saw there. One was Jess Caron, a student from civil engineering with experience in data analytics. Would they be eligible? Yes, especially with 10 years experience, but by all means. And I saw one other question there. What is the basic difference between information system security and open data practice? There's an intersection between the two. The information system security, that would be majorly covered off in the sort of cybersecurity related module. So you can have information system security without having open data. So maybe within an organization, they still need secure systems. But the idea of open data is to make some of that data openly available. And it also ties in with other areas such as open science and this idea of these FAIR principles. So there's an intersection between the two, but they are distinct. I don't see any other questions there. I think we've covered the other ones.
I think that's all covered. So yeah, Michael, thanks very much for taking your time out to present the information. Very informative. I know I learned a lot from the program, having not known much about it beforehand, as it is a relatively new program. Do appreciate that. And we've had quite a large number of people on the webinar today. So hopefully we have some interested students coming to join us in January or even in September next year. I also like to thank Brenda Acevedo for helping out on the webinar, managing the chat box, and as always, helping to organize the webinar. So we hope it's beneficial to all, and we look forward to welcoming everyone onto campus. So thanks very much for your time, and thank you again, Michael, and hopefully we see everyone again. So goodbye and thank you.